Get cool stuff for what you were going to do anyway. Drink beer. With Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt, you can just snap a photo of your receipt and upload it to the website to rack up points for exclusive merch. Get points for every purchase, whether you're grabbing a pint on draft, a case for a party, or a tall boy at the stadium. Any size, any product, anywhere you buy Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Sign up now at rewards.labattusa.com.
It's Drive Time with your host, Tim Leonard.
Hey, guess what? I'm getting one.
We welcome you into Drive Time. Happy first Monday of the new year. Back to work for everyone today and back to your work commute, which includes drive time, right? All of you making that a part of your work routine. We've got you for the next hour talking Syracuse sports, talking more Orange basketball. What are their New Year's resolutions? How do they somehow get themselves out of this hole they're in and get back into the conversation for the NCAA tournament? Is that even possible? Do you want to vent about how we shouldn't even be talking about that today on the first Monday of the new year? You can call in at 315-437-7644. Tim Leonard with you for the next hour. For ESPN 44, always the phone number to call. First weekend of the transfer portal. The only transfer portal window of the college football offseason now. No more spring transfer portal windows. Fran Brown's got to add a whole lot of players. He's added one so far. How many does he need to add? Are they behind? Should we be worried? Should we be panicked? Who's been on campus? What can we glean from the list of players they are after? We can dive into all of that with a full breakdown of the transfer portal to date for Orange football. We welcome your phone calls on that as well at 315-437-7644. What are the positions of need for Syracuse football in the transfer portal? What are the big things that they need to address? Who could they get at that backup quarterback position? Will it be two QBs? We can get into the list of visitors to this point and what we make of how the transfer portal has started and how we all need to exercise patience as we wait for more names to commit to Syracuse and Fran Brown to do his thing and bring in more talent to Syracuse football. Also, poll that came out earlier today through the Field of 68 ranking, or I guess anonymously asking all of the coaches in the ACC to rank what jobs are the best, what jobs are the worst in the ACC. I know a lot of you are already starting to think about who is the next Syracuse basketball head coach. Who could they get? How good of a job is Syracuse basketball in the year of 2026? We'll have plenty of time to discuss that if it does end up being a season that keeps trending this way and Syracuse doesn't make the tournament and Syracuse isn't close to the tournament and they're not playing meaningful games in March, and maybe that leads to John Wildtech making the decision to move on from Adrian Autry as the head coach. We will, I'm sure, be discussing that all throughout the offseason and the summer in terms of who Syracuse should be hiring if it comes to that. We don't necessarily need to jump fully into that conversation today on January 5th when there is still plenty of season left, but we can discuss how good of a job is Syracuse basketball and where did they rank in that list of anonymous coaches voting on the best jobs in ACC men's basketball. Orange women's basketball got a nice win yesterday. They are 13-2 on the season. They have already had more wins than they had all of last season when they went 12-18. So the bounce back year continuing for them, a 15-point victory over Wake Forest, another team they were supposed to beat. They have not played the toughest of schedules so far, but they're going to go into a telling 5-game stretch here, starting with Virginia Tech at home on Thursday. That'll be a 6 p.m. tip. on Thursday. We'll have a full slate of drive time shows for you this week, with the exception of that Thursday, because we will have Orange women's basketball, and I'll have the radio call for that as always, beginning with our pregame coverage at 5:45 on Thursday night. So we'll get into some of the Cuse women's basketball game from yesterday, and we can get to your thoughts in the Cuse Sports Talk chat as well. Cuse Sports Talk YouTube page. But we begin today with our Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive, as always. Thanks to our friends at Burdick BMW of Cicero. We begin today talking Syracuse basketball. Fresh off the opening weekend of the transfer portal, which we will get to a lot of football thoughts I plan to over the course of our hour with you today. And we welcome your phone calls throughout. But I want to talk a little bit more Syracuse basketball, because I was on Orange Nation earlier today with Paulie, filling in for Steve, who will be back tomorrow. And I had prepared all these stats and research on the three-point shooting and got down a little bit of a rabbit hole this morning on just how dire things are for Syracuse basketball in terms of their three-point shooting, and whether that is specifically just this year's problem or it has been a Adrian Autry era at large problem. So let me present to you what my research gathered today, and we can all form opinions on what this tells us about Syracuse's offense, which I know has been the hot topic around Central New York in regards to sports lately, is the Syracuse basketball offense. And I do think the biggest thing that Syracuse needs to improve on, their biggest New Year's resolution, is three-point shooting. So right now, as we've talked about a lot, Syracuse is in the low 300s in the country, 305 nationally in three-pointers made per game. 6.4 three-pointers made per contest. That is dead last out of 18 teams in the ACC. Syracuse has attempted 21 threes per game, about 20.6 three-point attempts per game. That is 279th in Division I out of about 365 teams, and 17th out of 18 teams in the ACC in three-point field goal attempts. They're not attempting a lot of threes, which is honestly fine because they're not a very effective three-point shooting team. We know they're not a good free throw shooting team. We've talked a lot about how it has been disappointing collectively how good of a shooting team they have been to this point in the season. What is really jarring is Syracuse hasn't even had one or two games to this point where they have caught fire from three-point range, or had an out-of-body experience, or tapped into something that shows you maybe there is more potential there for them as they turn the corner into the new year to improve their three-point shooting. The most threes Syracuse basketball has made in a game this season is 9 threes in one game against Stonehill, one of the worst opponents on the calendar so far. The most threes they have made in a game this season is 9 threes once. Basically, every game they have been between 3 made threes and 8 made threes, and they had that 9 3-point game against Stonehill in the final game before the winter break. You look across the ACC, and every single other school in the ACC has made double-digit threes in at least 3 games this year, but Syracuse. Syracuse has 0 games this year with double-digit three-pointers made. Some of that is their schedule and the teams they played. When they have played up in competition, they have played some of the best defenses in the country. They also have played some of the worst defenses in the country, and they still have not knocked down a lot of threes in a game to this point in the year. Georgia Tech, who the Orange will play tomorrow night in their first true road game of the season, coming on January 5th. They did not play a single true road game in non-conference play. They will play Georgia Tech tomorrow night on the road. They are projected to win that game by 1 point right now on KenPom. I would imagine the spread is somewhere in that neighborhood. when it comes out, probably tonight or early tomorrow morning. Georgia Tech has had 3 games this year where they have reached double-figure three-pointers. That is tied for second to last in the ACC with Miami. At the top of the conference, you look, and we'll just run down the list here. Louisville and Florida State have 10 games this year to lead the ACC. And how many times have you made 10 or more threes in a game? Louisville and Florida State have each done it 10 times. Florida State is just jacking up threes when you look at their game logs. That is their new head coach's philosophy, Luke Locks, and they just keep on shooting from three-point range, even though they've been kind of so-so. Louisville has made 10 or more threes 10 times this year. Florida State, 10 times this year. Virginia, 9 times. NC State and Cal have each done it 7 times. 4 teams in the conference have done it 6 times. Duke, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, and Clemson all have made 10 or more threes in 6 different games this year. SMU, UNC, Wake, Stanford, Pitt, and BC. That's 6 teams that have done it 5 times. SMU, UNC, Wake, Stanford, Pitt, BC all have 5 games this year with 10 or more three-pointers made in an individual game. Miami has done it 3 times. Georgia Tech has done it 3 times. No one has done it twice. No one has done it just once. And Syracuse has not done it in a single game this year. They have not reached double-digit three-pointers made in a single game this year. So you wonder, is that a this-year problem for Syracuse, or is it an Adrian Autry era problem? Is it something that has been bugging them the last couple years? So I went back and I started from Adrian Autry's first game, and I did the last 2.5 seasons. From the start of the 2023-2024 season, how many times has each team in the ACC reached double-digit three-pointers in a game? How many times has each team in the ACC made 10 or more threes in a game in the last 2.5 seasons, essentially? Duke has done it 38 times to lead the conference. Louisville has done it 31 times. Stanford, 30. We keep going down the list. I don't have to say every single team, but we get to the bottom of the list. You've got Wake Forest, third to last. They have done it 18 times since the start of the 2023-2024 season. Florida State, second to last at 17 times. In the last 2.5 seasons, that Florida State has reached the threshold of double-digit three-pointers made in a game. Syracuse is last at 7 below Florida State. They have done it just 10 times under Adrian Autry and 10 times since the start of the 2023-2024 season has Syracuse basketball made 10 or more threes in a game. They have not done it a single time this year. So that leads to the question of, 1, why is this happening? And 2, how do you fix this? Red talked today on his ACC Media Day, or Coaches Conference call, I should say, ACC Coaches Conference call, about how they need to get more looks for Nate Kings and Tyler Betsy. When you go through the individual three-point numbers for all of these guys, Tyler Betsy leads the team right now, 35% thereabouts from three-point range. J.J. Starling, who is not shooting as much from three-point range, his shot looks broken at the free throw line, doesn't look great in warm-ups. It looks actually better in-game action, I feel like. He's shooting 33% from three-point range. Nate Kings is 32%, and that's the biggest one. Nate Kings at 32% is well below what our expectations were going into the season. Nate Kings was a 45% three-point shooter last year, or 44.6% last year at Oregon State. I didn't think he was going to shoot 45% this year because I thought it would be more volume, it would be tougher competition, but I thought he'd be about 40%. He's at 32%. Nathan George is 32%. Donnie Freeman is 31%. Sadiq White, who I just never like how a shot looks when it comes off his hand from three-point range. He kind of has that weird side spin on the ball. He's 30% from three. Luke Fennell is 25%. He doesn't even really play, so not worth talking about him much. Kyan Anthony is 23%. That's another one that is well below what our expectations would have been going into the season. Kyan at 23 and Nate Kings at 32% feel like the two obvious ones that should improve and need to improve in terms of their three-point field goal percentage as we go deeper into ACC play. You wonder if the Dome sightlines has something to do with these stats. You wonder if it's just the idea that Red is looking for a certain type of player to fit his defense, a more athletic type of player that can get out and run and play an up-tempo style, and therefore they are not recruiting as many shooters that could be reaching. I'm sure a lot of you listening right now would point to the fact that it's the offense. I don't think that this is some very good three-point shooting team that because of the offense they are running, they are not tapping into that. I watch this team closely in warm-up situations and things like that, and I don't feel like they're going out there and they're about to knock down 15 threes in the game. It just doesn't feel like this is a very good three-point shooting team. I think the free throw shooting numbers speak to that. If they were a good three-point shooting team, they would not be shooting 31% from three. So I know I made the point last week, and I saw a lot of you react to that on social media and say it's just because of the offense. They have enough good shooters. I think it's partially a personnel problem, but at the same time, this is 3 years under Coach Autry, and they have averaged about 6 threes made per game in all 3 seasons. And Nate Kings is the type of shooter that every team wants and shot at about 45% last year, and he's only shooting at 32% this year. At some point, you just need to make more threes. And I do think that they are capable of making more threes. And it was also noteworthy in Red's chat today with the media that he said they really need to improve on their assist numbers. And those have dropped in the last couple games, and they need to move the ball better. I think we all see that. I think they know that. I do feel like one thing the coaching staff is probably already doing and needs to do is get more looks for Nate Kings, Tyler Betsy, and just find a way to get more made three-pointers. 6 threes per game in 2026 is not going to cut it. Being dead last in all of these three-point statistics in the ACC is not going to cut it. And if they just are a little bit better from three-point range, that opens things up from a spacing perspective. And I think the offense flows better, and we're just not talking as negatively about what we're seeing in the half-court offense from Syracuse basketball. We're off and running on Drive Time. That was our Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive. If you have thoughts on that, you can call in at 315-437-7644. That is 4ESPN 44. Back with more. We'll talk all things Syracuse football transfer portal on the other side here on QSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio. Fire Red. What's up, chat? Mikey P, just happy to be here. We love that, Mikey. It's your New Year's resolution, more drive time. That's what it should be. Bowling ball with a very relatable 2 sentences. I hate college athletics. I still watch it, though. Understandable. I think we're all kind of in that boat lately. Yeah, I feel like they could run more plays for Nate King, Supercat, or San Diego Cuse. Or maybe Supercat's thinking that too, but I misread. I don't think Bam's 12-2 at this team. I don't think he was beaten. I mean, they had 3 losses right away without your best player. It feels like they shouldn't have won any of the 3 games in Vegas. Could argue they shouldn't have beat Tennessee, obviously, too. Yeah, I think Red is very much aware of that, Spatching Louise. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I'm sure he knows that there's chatter about him. How could you not? What do you guys think? Is it on the blame scale? Is it more on they just don't have a good group of three-point shooters, or they don't? Are you of the camp that they don't run offense, and because of that, like, what do you think a good coach would have this team shooting from three-point range if you believe it's on the coaching? I think that's fair, bowling ball. I think those numbers are pretty damning in terms of they've had 3 separate rosters and they just don't make three-point shots enough. I don't think that any of those teams really would have been knockdown three-point shooters with like Danny Hurley as the head coach, or like the best scenario possible. Philly's most wanted. I think he's been a little bit better at getting by guys lately. He's not that type of guy, but you were talking about his pick and roll numbers a lot. I mean, I would encourage you, can you go back on your, I don't have Synergy, but if you could go back on your Synergy data to last year, I'm willing to bet he was a very good pick and roll player in terms of his time at Georgia Tech. So if he was good last year, which maybe I'm off, but I think I heard that was a stat they liked about him in the portal, maybe. Maybe I'm making that up, or that was just something I was theorizing. And then if he was good last year and he's not good this year, is there a reason for that? Is that coaching? Is that something we can take away? Bell has been about what he was at Syracuse from three-point range. I don't think I think we're in agreement. I don't think he's great at breaking anyone down off the dribble. And now I'm like defending Nate George, who I've been as hard on as anyone, I feel like. But I just think when you're playing out your scenario of JJ at the 1, I think we saw JJ at the 1 plenty last year, and that didn't really work for me. And I think George, well, he's not going to beat you off the dribble. He is a true point guard, which is something JJ Starling isn't. Bell is averaging 15 a game. His three-point numbers, I think he's 38%. It's about, when you look at his career, about what he was at Sarah. I mean, he was like 42% in Red's first year from 3, I think. But I hear you. I mean, he's not doing poorly.
Watch your favorite ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com.
Rolling along with more drive time here on ESPN Radio Syracuse. Riding into our second segment, where we're going to talk a lot of Orange football in the transfer portal. Phone lines are open throughout our hour with you this afternoon. Always with you 5 to 6 p.m. You can watch us on QSportsTalk.com. You can watch us on our YouTube channel as well, Q Sports Talk on the YouTube page. It's 315-437-7644 if you'd like to join in on the conversation as we talk Orange football in the transfer portal, or if you'd like to talk more about what we just wrapped up, which was the idea that Syracuse basketball has really struggled to make three-point shots under Coach Autry and ranks dead last in a lot of ACC statistics in regards to three-point shooting, and certainly needs to improve on that very stat as they head into the new year and head deeper into ACC play. Orange basketball on the road for their first true road game of the season next year, or tomorrow, next year. first true road game of this year as well. We can make that joke now that it's 2026. They'll be at Georgia Tech. Tomorrow night, we'll have full pregame and postgame coverage for that one, as always, with our guy, Gio. But let's talk some Orange football. And the transfer portal big opening weekend happened. Indiana reeled in like 6 guys already, and Indiana is just a complete power in college football in the year 2026, and they might win it all. And it is weird times around college football right now. And Syracuse is trying to figure out the right formula of who do we acquire, who are the types of guys we're going after, who fits Dart, but who also is talented enough to play for us and play right away, but in some instances be more of a depth piece. And we're seeing them go after a whole bunch of different positions and different types of players to this point in the transfer portal. And it's exciting to know that in about 2 weeks, actually less than that, in like 11 days, we're probably going to know about 10 to 12, maybe 15 new players on this Syracuse football roster for next year. We know one new player already, and that is the South Carolina tight end Michael Smith, who has transferred to Syracuse, or at least committed verbally that he will transfer to Syracuse for next season. Michael Smith was rated the 13th best tight end in the transfer portal per 24/7 Sports. He has 3 years of eligibility left. He was a former top 150 recruit in the entire country coming out of high school. Was viewed as an elite tight end recruit coming out of high school in Georgia. Maybe Fran Brown was trying to get him then, although there was no reported interest from Syracuse then. He had offers from literally everyone that you would want to get an offer from in college football. And he opted to go to South Carolina, where he started 7 games as a freshman. And that's impressive, to go down to SEC country and be a starting tight end as a true freshman. He was used at South Carolina mostly as an inline blocker, was not put in the slot, was not used as a receiver like he was thought to be when he was a high school recruit. And he was used a lot in the slot in high school, it seems like. He had some disputes, some frustration with the South Carolina coaching staff this past year about his usage, and probably over whether he was being used as a blocker too much compared to a pass catcher, and did not play as much, kind of lost his starting spot after an injury in the offseason. He left the team after just 4 games, so he has 3 years of eligibility left. He completely left the program and went into the transfer portal and is now going to Syracuse. 6'6", 248 pounds. You look at the tight end position next year for the Orange. David Clement is back, and he is one of the rare guys that has been with Fran Brown from the start and will be there for year 3 of Fran Brown. He is your typical blocking tight end, I'd say. Elijah Washington Baker, we've seen in spots, is more of a pass catcher, tall tight end option. So a little bit similar to what you have in Michael Smith. But we have seen in the first 2 years of Jeff Nixon and Fran Brown, they have thrown to the tight end quite a bit. Now, they have had 2 very good tight ends, Aronde Gadsden and then Dan Villari last year. So they have to replace Villari going into next season. It makes sense that they needed to get a starter-level tight end. And I feel like Michael Smith is your best pass-catching tight end on the roster now. We should note Jamie Tremble still has potential to play tight end. We don't exactly know his future, although he did not play really any tight end after the first game of the season, where he was out there for 1 offensive snap and caught 1 kind of meaningless catch that you might have forgotten about against Tennessee. I would imagine Jamie Tremble is mostly going to be used as a defensive player going forward in his Syracuse career, but who knows? He is still an option at the tight end position, and it's a little puzzling to think that he wouldn't be at least considered at the position where he was a very highly rated recruit coming out of high school, and there was glowing reviews really about him leading into last season about his play in the offseason at tight end. So maybe he is truly going to be a 2-way player next year. We'll see. It just feels like we've had a lot of chatter about two-way guys, but we haven't quite seen it work yet, whether it's Demetrius Samuel or Jamie Tremble. So I'm kind of in the camp of we'll wait and see on Jamie Tremble, but it does feel like Michael Smith is a very quality tight end out of the portal here from South Carolina and a good first commit for Fran Brown and company from the portal. We know that they are after not one, but two quarterbacks in the transfer portal. The quarterbacks that have been on campus or shown interest so far, you've got Terry Hedden from Furman, Amari Odom from Kennesaw State, who is rated the number 32 quarterback in the portal, according to 24/7 Sports. Taryn Dickens from Western Carolina, 71st rated quarterback in the portal through 24/7 Sports. Marcus Stokes was on campus this weekend. He was an early visit that we found out about, a West Florida D2 transfer, highly rated high school guy, had some issues, went down to the D2 level, and had a very good season for West Florida in D2, trying to work his way back up. He is the highest rated quarterback that has been on the list of potential guys coming to Syracuse. He is the 28th ranked quarterback in the portal, at least according to 24/7 Sports. News came out this morning that Stokes is going to make a visit to Oregon State after he made the visit to Syracuse. So glean from that what you want. Braden Atkinson is the Mercer quarterback who's in the portal, and Pete Nakos reported that he is drawing some interest from Syracuse. If they were able to get anyone that is a top 30 quarterback in the portal, like Stokes or Odom from Kennesaw State, the number 32 quarterback in the portal, that would be impressive to me. That would tell me that they are dedicating a good amount of resources towards the backup quarterback position, and I don't think that that's a problem. I think that's probably something that they should be doing, considering Steve Angeli is coming off a serious injury, considering they really just need someone for spring ball to run the offense, and you don't want bad backup quarterbacks like last year, because we saw what happened last year and how quickly it went downhill. We know that they are after running backs and wide receivers. I feel very confident they're going to find a solid running back that will fill pretty much what Yasin Willis's role was last year. Maybe he'll be a different type of running back. It seems like they're after a quicker, shiftier back that has a little bit more home run play potential than what we saw from Yasin Willis. It seems like they're going to reel in a wide receiver or two, and they have done very well at recruiting wide receiver, and they're going to bring in some great talent through the high school level, of course, with Calvin Russell and Amari Goff. I believe it's Amari Goff. I've heard Amari Go and Goff, but I think it is Goff. If anyone knows the answer to that, let me know. But either way, those are two guys that they are very high on from the high school level. They have some good young pieces that are coming back at wide receiver. They're going to bring in another tight end as a visitor this week from New Mexico State. We have not mentioned offensive line or defensive line, which I said in my list of most important position groups, I would put D-line 1, O-line 2, quarterback 3 going into the portal. I think that they are going to bring in quite a bit in terms of edge rushers and defensive line, and honestly, it seems like there is a commit that we haven't found out about yet that is probably an edge rusher, just because Jeremy Hawkins has been tweeting kind of hints that they have done some good things in the portal. So maybe by the time we chat with you tomorrow, we'll have, I'm sure, a couple more announcements to give you in regards to some of these players making their decisions. But what we know right now is not a lot of action in terms of offensive line in the portal. And I want to stress what we know right now, because this list that I have in front of myself, which is, shout out to our guy Mike McAllister, does a great job on 24/7 Sports for the Syracuse page, and we had him on Orange Nation earlier today, and I have been constantly going, I might as well just bookmark the page that Mike has that is just the transfer portal visitors and who has come on campus and who they have expressed interest in. That is the list that is in front of me, basically. with maybe a couple other names. I mean, for example, Michael Smith, we didn't really know he was coming, and then out of nowhere, he has committed. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. There are more names out there, I'm sure, that are on campus right now, that will be on campus, that have been on campus, that we don't know about. And we just have to see what Fran Brown and company do over the next 10 days or so in terms of what they bring in. I would like to see them bring in one or two offensive linemen. I think that's how they should handle it. I'm not sure that's going to be the case. I think they're definitely going to upgrade running back, definitely going to upgrade wide receiver. They're definitely going to bring in some quarterbacks, probably two. We'll see the defensive line. We'll see linebacker get upgraded. I'm sure some of the Toledo names will fall into place, and maybe even that Georgia State defensive lineman. I think all that stuff makes sense for how they upgrade their defense. We've already seen a big upgrade to tight end, which is good to see. I think offensive line, it would be nice if we saw a couple visitors and a couple names trickle out there. I understand that they do have some nice pieces there on the offensive line, and I'm not trying to overlook that, but I just really value veteran offensive linemen. And Joe Cruz is an option to be back next year, and I'm sure he will be, it seems like. That would be one piece that's kind of in the veteran category. I think Byron Washington has a great future. I think there are a lot of guys, Trey Mack, who has a good future. I would like to see more competition brought in and some veteran pieces brought in on offensive line. And then I do think they just need an edge rusher like a Fidel Diggs that can get after the quarterback. And I think that is one of the more expensive positions in the portal. And that is where I would probably put a decent amount of my portal resources if I was Syracuse, is upgrading that edge rusher position, offensive line, and quarterback. Backup quarterback is going to take some money probably, because it's not the most appealing destination when you consider you're probably not going to start for at least 1 year, maybe 2 years behind Steve Angeli. When we come back, we can get to some of your phone calls if you'd like at 315-437-7644. I also want to talk about how good of a job is Syracuse basketball in the ACC. There was an interesting poll, or an anonymous coaches poll, that came out today through the Field of 68. They ranked every single job in the ACC. We'll discuss where Syracuse falls, if that's right, what to make of just how good of a job Syracuse basketball is in 2026. That's next on Drive Time.
This is our...
I agree, Philly. Yeah, Mario Odom looks very good. I was kind of just, to be consistent, going off 24/7 Sports, but he does look solid. Copeland's done a nice job, for sure. What's the difference, Philly, that he has better players around him? What are you going to argue? I mean, obviously he was hurt some last year. Are you going to say he's just was a better shooter last year? I mean, didn't have the hitch in his shot as much? Yeah, Philly, I don't know if they're making the playoffs next year. I think a good year for them would be kind of get things back on track with like a 7-win season. That's a good question. Something we'll have tons of time to talk about. Maybe we wait till the roster's more formed. But I think we have talked about this a little bit. What is the number of wins this year that you would sign up for and not risk it being better? Like, if I told you 7 wins right now, would you say yes? If I told you 8 wins, is that the threshold? Yeah, but I don't know if you want, I mean, what is one of their weakest stats right now? Assists. They need to get more assists. Do we want J.J. Starling as the point guard on a team that is struggling to get assists? You think I'm lowballing it? I think, 7 wins isn't anything to sniff at. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I am lowballing it a little bit, but it's still a young team next year. I don't see them really doing enough in the portal where their Vegas win total is much more than like 5.5 wins. Not that the Vegas win total means everything. That'd be good, Gavenda. Put the ball in the basket. By the way, if I don't say this, I'm sure you guys saw Toledo's off the schedule. I think if you've been listening, I was sort of hinting at that. That's off the schedule, and then you just insert NC State. I saw, I think Brent tweeted and was like, now they got to add one more game, and some people were reacting like, oh no, why is Toledo off the schedule? What does this mean? That was kind of always understood with the new ACC rules. I mean, Kev, they'll get someone who's, I don't know, am I in the minority here? Like, wide receiver and running back, that's replaceable. They'll get someone who's just as good as Jonte Cook. They lost Trevor Pena, Jonte Cook came in. They lose Jonte Cook, I bet they'll reel in a very solid wide receiver. Cook dropped some passes. Cook was kind of a problem. I'm fine with him being gone. Very replaceable. If you're talking what positions are replaceable, yeah, I agree, Philly. Like, running back it's always been a little overrated because it just is at the top of the box score, and people people gravitate to the running back and they get a lot of attention, but it's really about your offensive line, the system you're running. I mean, Yasin Willis, I think Matt Park came on Orange Nation and said, what would Yasin's WAR be? And I don't think it'd be that high. I don't think Jonte Cook's WAR would be that high, but I think a good offensive lineman. Rolling along with Drive Time this afternoon. Tim Leonard back inside our studios with you. Talk some Orange basketball, talk some Orange football as well. Transfer portal is open. 315-437-7644 if you'd like to call in and join the conversation via the phone lines this afternoon. We teased it before the break that we're going to dive into this Field of 68 anonymous poll that came out. And they said, Jeff Goodman said of the Field of 68, he's going to be doing this for all of the conferences where they are ranking from best to worst, the best jobs in each conference, starting with the ACC. For those of you that did not see this poll, Syracuse checks in at number 6 in terms of best jobs in the ACC. Duke is number 1, UNC is number 2, Louisville is number 3. I think that is your clear top 3. Of course, Duke and UNC being your clear top 1 and 2. You could maybe quibble with which job is better, but I would probably stack them up exactly how these coaches anonymously voted them to be. UNC got 3 first-place votes, it looks like, I guess. Duke got 8 first-place votes. Duke barely 1 point higher than UNC in the total voting through this poll that the Field of 68 dropped, and they were polling a bunch of different coaches across the ACC. I assume that's assistant coaches as well. I don't know that for a fact, but I would assume it's not just head coaches that were asked this. Duke is 1, UNC is 2, Louisville is 3, Virginia at 4. And here's where it gets a little interesting. NC State at 5, 147 points in the polling. Syracuse at 6 with 138. You drop down to a list of kind of football schools from there that have good resources. Miami 7, SMU 8, Clemson 9, Notre Dame 10. These are the best jobs in the ACC voted on anonymously by coaches from the league and through the field of 68. Wake Forest 11, Florida State 12, Pittsburgh 13. Maybe a little low for Pittsburgh. Oh, Pittsburgh is tied for 13th with Virginia Tech. They each got 62 points. Georgia Tech 15. The Orange will play Georgia Tech tomorrow. Damon Stoudemire is their head coach. Stanford 16, Cal 17, and the easiest pick of this entire poll is Boston College at 18. Jeff Goodman did tweet that literally every single person that was asked to vote put Boston College dead last in terms of being the worst job unanimously in the ACC. So that feels about right for Syracuse. Maybe some of you would argue they should be higher. They should be above NC State. The thing about a list like this now, if we were doing this before NIL, before the transfer portal, before all the craziness in college sports, if we were doing this in, say, 2018, I think Syracuse would probably be 4th on this list. I think they would still be behind, of course, UNC and Duke. That's 1 and 2 no matter when you do this, really. UNC and Duke in some order. Louisville, I think, given their resources, given the Yums, I just think Louisville is definitely a better job right now than Syracuse. And it's really kind of shocking how bad Louisville was under Kenny Payne and then how quickly they flipped it under Pat Kelsey. And I know a lot of you use that as an example for why Syracuse should move on. And if they get the right coach, they can flip it very quickly. I think Louisville has spent a lot more money on their roster in the last couple years than Syracuse. I don't even have to think that. I pretty much know that. I think Louisville has much better resources than Syracuse. So I would put Louisville ahead of Syracuse at 3. And I think Virginia and NC State being 4 and 5 feels right. And again, this isn't like fans voting. These are coaches that know. So I trust their opinions on this. And they have Syracuse at 6. And honestly, these lists just come down to how much NIL money can you generate? How much rev share is your basketball program getting? What are your resources? That is essentially what this list comes down to now. Gone are the days of evaluating the prestige of the program, how often you've been winning, what is your recruiting base. 315-437-7644 if you'd like to chime in. And I think we just had someone trying to get on the show. If you call back right now, we can try and work you in here if you have thoughts on this. Gone are the days, really, of the recruiting base and where your location is and the prestige of the program. It's just all about money now. And I think Miami pre-NIL would have been viewed as maybe the 13th or 14th best job in the league. Now Miami is 7th on this list. I think SMU has basically no prestige of program and no history and all that, but they're 8th on this list because they've got pretty good NIL. It's very good NIL, really. Clemson has the football NIL, which translates to basketball NIL. Miami's football team making it to the college football Final Four is going to net them $14 million. So that helps Miami athletics quite a bit. And I think in the NIL era, Syracuse has probably dropped from about 4th to 6th on this list. Some of it is Syracuse hasn't been winning as much. They have not been on national TV as much. They're not as big of a brand. And I think some of this, we also just have to take into account that Syracuse was punching above its weight for a lot of years under Jim Boeheim. Syracuse has never been a destination that a lot of recruits look at as an appealing place to live, I'm sure. Let's go to the phone lines. We've got Michael in Manlius who wants to chime in. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Tim, what's up?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. All right, so Georgia Tech game coming up. I want to see SU crash the offensive boards and not settle for three-pointers. And I got my saying I'm coming up with, I want to see them dunk on some guys, and when they dunk on them, say, excuse me, and they change it to, excuse me.
Excuse me, okay.
Me.
All right, Mike. Syracuse does have some dunkers on this team. We appreciate Mike, and he's bringing the positivity into 2026 as well. Mike is always a positive phone call, and we appreciate his fun phone calls on the show. Syracuse has plenty of dunkers. I don't know if they're going to be dropping that line, but I like where his head's at. If they're not making three-point shots, maybe they just got to get up and down a little bit more. I think Adrian Autry said that today as well on the coaches' conference call, that he would like to see the team be a little bit more up-tempo. What are your thoughts, though, on this list? Is 6 right for where Syracuse should rank in terms of ACC jobs? Am I off? Am I wrong for saying that the resources is pretty much all of what goes into making this list nowadays, or actually ranking what are the best jobs in college basketball or what are the best jobs in the ACC? I feel right now, when you take into account how tough it is maybe to get a player to come up into the snow of Syracuse and what Syracuse has from a rev share perspective, that feels about right for them to be the 6th best job in the ACC. I would also say, of the schools in the ACC, if you go through the list and you say basketball school, football school, basketball school, football school, there's a good amount of basketball schools in the ACC. Syracuse is definitely still a basketball school. When you ask that to an average person, I know some of you believe, oh, well, Fran Brown is going to turn this into a football school and basketball is declining so much, but basketball is still the main thing in this town, and basketball is what people watch the most and care about the most. And when Syracuse basketball is going right, that is still a huge part of the fabric of this town. It just hasn't, unfortunately, been going right in a long time. Of the basketball schools on this list, Syracuse is one of the weakest right now in terms of the profile of job. And that's fine because there's a lot of really good basketball programs in the ACC. Duke, UNC, Louisville. I think Virginia has better resources. Virginia has probably leapfrogged Syracuse in that discussion. Obviously, pre-Tony Bennett, you would have never made the case for Virginia number 4. And I do think Virginia, you can tell with the roster they have this year and the reporting, they really leaned into the NIL space, rev share, and making sure they had good resources for their roster. They also had a nice year in football, which that just helps. That trickles down a little bit. We'll hit our final break. If you have thoughts on any of that, you can call in at 315-437-7644. Back with more Drive Time.
Check out
Yeah, I would say that's right, B. Bixie. I think pretty much cash drives the bus. I mean, you've got like a collective bargaining and salary cap in the pros, so there's no limit. I mean, Texas Tech can just like buy its way into the playoff. Like, did you guys see Texas Tech, Brennan Sorsby's going there, the top QB in the portal, Cincinnati guy? And he's going there for $5 million reportedly. And then on Times Square, one of the big spots for advertising on Times Square, it just says like Texas Tech welcomes Brennan. Like, that's silly money they've got. I mean, think about how much that costs. That could be like one player for Syracuse probably. And they can just throw it around on a billboard. I don't really know what you mean by that, S-Lou. Like, you're saying they weren't punching above their weight? I think it's fair to say that Syracuse, New York would not be thought of this way, or Syracuse University would be thought of differently if not for Jim Boeheim being sort of the perfect coach that was a very good coach and stayed here for a while. And obviously them being a part of the Big East and having the Dome. And yeah, I mean, it's a huge brand. It better be. We spend a lot of time talking about them on the air. But under Boeheim, you don't think they punched above their weight, like just because they opened up the Carrier Dome? And I would say, like, I mean, just look at how much snow there's been in the last couple weeks. Like, it's tough to compete in recruiting when that is a part of your formula, or that is a part of the discussion around you. I think it's fair to say that they punched above their weight. I mean, the 80s and 90s, they were very good at football and basketball at the same time. And lacrosse was winning natties all the time. Like, those days are hard to fathom right now, given the culture around college sports. Biggest thing is Boeheim just was fine staying. I mean, Rick Pitino made the joke, like, I'm out of here. I mean, there's a lot of good coaches that would have used Syracuse as a stepping stone job, probably, when Jim Boeheim was young. I agree, Philly. Those are all the pros, but didn't they become that level of a brand because of Boeheim a good deal? Because they started winning more than they ever did. I mean, they did make the Final Four right before Boeheim, but I think it's pretty obvious that they were exceeding expectations a good bit. And I think it's tougher to exceed expectations now because all it comes down to is how much money do you bring in, really. All right, we're in agreement on that one. Philly, I hope you know I agree with a lot of your points. I guess that's kind of the nature of the chat. You guys put stuff up there, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I agree with that, but yeah, the Dome's awesome. I'm not going to poo-poo the Dome, but does that matter as much as it used to that you're playing in the Dome? I think if there's a tiebreaker now, it's not the Dome. It's how much money.
And 97.7 and 100.1. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com.
Love you, Philip. Final segment of the afternoon on Drive Time. 315-437-7644 if you'd like to chime in on the phones. We can get to a final thought before we wrap up on the program today. Let's do some shout-outs here on the show, as we always end every show and every hour with you on Drive Time. First shout-out to the women's basketball team that got a very nice win yesterday on the road over Wake Forest. Used a huge third quarter where they outscored Wake 23-8 in the third. Made some nice adjustments at halftime. Went to their matchup zone out of their player-to-player defense, and it worked in the third quarter. Knocked down some threes in the second half, which was good to see. Sophie Burrows had a nice game shooting and continues her streak of shooting better away from the Dome than inside the Dome. Sophie in her career, very big splits in terms of home or away. She's about a 29-30% three-point shooter at home in her career and high 30s when she is on the road. Let's go to Tim, who is in Charlotte, North Carolina. The women's basketball team wasn't far from Charlotte. They were down in Winston-Salem when they got the win yesterday, and he wants to talk some SU men's basketball, I'd imagine. What's up, Tim?
How you doing, LT?
LT, I like it. You're flipping it around.
Yeah, I flipped it around.
I like it. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Hey, talking about punching up, but you can say the same and maybe even more with Krzyzewski with Duke.
Sure. Yeah.
They weren't a supper time conversation, and he probably even more. And then the football team was like the worst in the country, and now they've come around. I think that's a lot to do with Duke basketball.
Yeah, but I think we're all in agreement that if anything in the 80s and 90s, Syracuse athletics exceeded expectations. And now, sadly, it's not as much when you're trying to get recruits about how much prestige in your program, but just how much money you have. And I think in this era, it's tougher to punch above your weight, maybe.
I think a lot of it's got to do with going to the ACC because we grabbed all the warm weather California kids, Stephen Thompson. It goes on, who we grabbed from warm weather back then. But that was the Big East. And if it still was the Big East, I know the money's good in the ACC. If it still was the Big East, we'd be top two. Probably us, Villanova, and Georgetown. I mean, the old Big
Connecticut,
East.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I left that out. Connecticut, and they were the four strongest ones. And I didn't miss a game from the Dome's opening. I closed down the Manly. I had preferred seats. I didn't miss a single game for Pearl, not a single minute with Pearl playing. I didn't miss a game till '93. Then I would just miss some trap games, and didn't miss a Big East until I moved down here. And gave my tickets to. I had a friend. We'd buy 1.5 tickets a year. My uncle gave a poultry, $15,000 when they built the Dome. It was pretty good. So we had great seats.
Yeah, I think the decision to go to the ACC was still the right one for Syracuse, and you hit on it, the money
and everything, and the longevity, yeah.
Yeah, but it's I guess just frustrating that you look back on the Big East days, and that's when college basketball was in a really good spot, and now here we are.
Amazing.
It's just a different era. I mean, Villanova is kind of in the same boat where they go to Kyle Neptune, and now they have fired Kyle Neptune, and they're having a much better year. And maybe that's the roadmap for Syracuse that shows you can bounce back from that first coach after the legendary head coach that struggles. But there's a lot of schools that are in that old Big East realm that just aren't really producing to the likes of what they used to. I mean, Georgetown's a great example.
Yeah.
Yep. Interesting points, though. I appreciate you checking in, Tim.
Yep. And I haven't given up yet for this year. It's frustrating, Zach, and I thought that we don't know, but I thought Donnie should have come back maybe that last game before the Clemson game, just get the rust off, because he showed a lot there, and we relied on him completely in that second half, and he almost pulled it off. But, I mean, we got some foul shooting, was finally a good for the game. I mean, really good for that game. But, I mean, so think about that. If it wasn't, we'd have been wiped out because field goals, we didn't have them.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we've been talking and relaying some of Red's comments, and there's Tim in Charlotte, good phone call from him, how Red was saying that let's not overreact to the fact that we're not scoring as many points. A lot of that is our free throw shooting has not been producing, and we're leaving points on the table at the free throw line. They got to 61 points, and they did it with 20 free throws, and were 20 for 24 at the line. So that excuse didn't really apply for that particular game. The idea of Donnie coming back a game earlier, I'm sure that is how they wanted to do it as well. They didn't want him to be actively shaking off the rust in a very important game at home, a quad 2 game in the ACC. But you got to listen to the doctors, and you can't rush someone back from an injury like that. And you got to protect Donnie Freeman's future, and you got to have his best interest in mind. And I think they just ultimately, their hands were tied there. I'm sure that if they had the option to play him earlier and shake off the rust, they would have done that. But they leaned on the side of not rushing him back, which is always the way that you should lean, specifically when it's that type of injury, too. It feels like they just had no other option there. That'll be that for Drive Time this afternoon. Thanks to Gio for producing. I did want to talk about the men's lacrosse team. We can get into that some tomorrow because the polls are out. They are number 2 in the preseason poll. We also will have a good guest on the show tomorrow in Cody Alexander to talk about Vince Karras and his defensive style. He has written a lot about his scheme and how it's very progressive, very cutting edge type of defense. And this is a guy that breaks down college football schemes with the best of them. So I'm really excited to have him on the show tomorrow at 5:15 and get his thoughts on what makes the defensive scheme under Vince Karras different from other defensive schemes and what Syracuse is getting in their new defensive coordinator, and just a couple other talking points with him about college football at large. So that'll be on the show tomorrow. We'll have Orange Nation for you tomorrow from 12 to 2 as well, and then our pregame and postgame coverage for that big one on the road at Georgia Tech. Big one in a way. It's a can't lose big one, not big one in the sense that it's a quad one opportunity, but all of them are kind of really big given where Syracuse basketball is at right now, and I'm sure will lead to a lot of overreactions when we have our postgame show tomorrow for Georgia Tech. But until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching on QSportsTalk.com, and we'll talk to you next time.
This is